Hi everyone. Welcome again. My name is Shalaka. I'm client partner here at Lemnis in the customer success org. Last time around, we spoke with Prashant Agarwal from AIA Group on digitization lessons from COVID-19. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Gaurav Gupta, or as he goes by Gigi, and moderate a session between him and Subra. Right. So our topic for today is how real-time personalization can power enterprise CX. So if you or your organization has been talking about CX and you missed the conversation about a strong real-time one-to-one hyper-personalization strategy, then you really need to reevaluate, right? And that's where we have two of our thought leaders today. So one of a few of the things that they will cover today are, their experiences on why personalization is a strong essential foundation to your enterprise CX strategy, and how to navigate it, how to take ownership in an era where customer is at the center of all your business strategy, right? So just introducing our thought leaders quickly for the day. Our first speaker participant is Gaurav Gupta, Gigi. Gigi leads omnichannel marketing practice at Circles, where the promise is to engage users with smarter messaging at the most opportune moments, aided by user journey orchestration and personalized decision making across channels at scale. Right? His 16 plus years industry experience comprises of performance marketing at leading global media agencies combined with in-house business experience as well. He's an entrepreneur and loves exchanging ideas on marketing innovations. If you ask Gigi what's the secret sauce of being successful in digital marketing, his response is to always question the norm because it's always far too early to conform in any way. Right. So Gigi, welcome, and it's so great to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Shalaka. Wow, what an introduction! But I think for most folks, let me also sort of introduce Circus Life. I wouldn't I wouldn't just assume that everybody knows about Circus Life. We are still a challenger brand. So Circus Life is a telco in a shape of an MVNO, and we started our operations almost 4 years ago now, and now we're sort of transcending into a personalized digital services sort of a space. And I started my journey with Circus Life. Pretty much, I was number one employee in the marketing, marketing department, and have had the pleasure of building the practice from ground up. Now we have operations in 4 markets. Indonesia is going to be kicking off very soon. Other than that, we've got Australia, Taiwan, and Singapore. So this is about Circus Life, and it's great to be here. And I'm always psyched and kicked about sharing whatever little I know about customer experience and how best that can be sort of enhanced, and I'm always keen to sort of share whatever I know, because I'm a big proponent of this practice, and I would like more and more adoption among us marketing clan.
Yeah, well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, Gigi. And apart from all of the thought leadership that you get, we absolutely love your infectious energy as well, and it makes you one of the better candidates for such kind of a discussion.
Well, I'm humbled and I try.
So moving on, our second participant in the discussion is Subra Krishnan. Subra is the CEO at Lemnis. Lemnis is an innovative customer data platform with real-time cross-channel marketing automation capabilities. Right. So Subra is an outstanding MarTech and CDP expert. He leads CDP product vision, evangelization, and thought leadership here at Lemnis. Prior to Lemnis, he was with Vizuri, India's hottest ad tech companies. So at Vizuri, Subra held various product and business leadership roles, culminating into his role as the CEO. Very successfully led Vizuri's acquisition by Affle. Right? So Subra has also had stints with Austin-based Trilogy and the automotive firm Daimler Chrysler. Say hi again, Subra.
Hi. And Gigi, let me just say I'm so looking forward to having this chat. I always enjoy speaking with you, even outside of work. And so it's really a pleasure that we're able to do this today. So thank you for your time and appreciate all.
No, it's always a pleasure, Subra, and I can go back to so many our conversations where we geeked out on
Yeah, absolutely.
technology and data and whole bunch of
It's my
other
favorite part.
conversations.
I really enjoyed that, Gigi. I really enjoyed doing that with you. So I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah.
All right. So today's discussion will be divided into three sections, spanning across CX priorities, role of real-time interaction management, and what enterprises can do exactly to take ownership of this. So diving straight into the first section. So deep diving straight into the first section, right? So first section is all about enterprise focus on customer experience as a part of the overall customer obsessed culture, right? So my question to Gigi, you first and Subra, is Gigi, how did the increasing role of CX sort of gradually play into your professional journey, seeing that you come from the agency background into performance marketing now in-house? And Subra, to you, the question is that over the years, from leading an ad tech product company to now being the CEO of a customer data platform, how have you seen the industry change priorities from your point of view?
A very interesting question, Shalaka, I must say, because I believe a bit of a context of past is always helpful to understand what's our onward journey going to look like or going to fetch us. Um, my journey, as you sort of rightly plotted, started from an agency where I've pretty much self-taught digital marketing. I was actually a suit in advertising back in Ogilvy, and from then I realized that advertising and creative side of marketing is very slippery slope and very subjective, and I needed something more empirical to sort of stand my argument on. Um, and therefore sort of brought me to the empirical side of marketing, or the science of side of marketing, which is the media and therefore digital marketing. What I found during the journey was it was very what can I say, if I may say, that it has been a journey which started from a context based ads, where we used to go and create scrounge around plans around, oh, you need to get some Yahoo News or Yahoo Finance, or get some sports or CNN web kind of websites if you want to go after a certain kind of audiences. The only connection there was you would expect a certain audience persona to have a higher mind space to absorb your ads in the space that there is. Or if it was a travel client or an airline, then you would want to show ads in travel related websites like TripAdvisor. Then it led to sometime maybe a decade and a half ago, into something called a persona based advertising, and then now into an intent based advertising. Persona based was mostly from point of view that you had you had these DSPs which had come up, or ad networks, who claim that they've crafted a certain personas and can have the science to target and to expose your exposed certain ads to those specific personas. And that did play out fairly okay, until a moment where DMPs uh, entered the foray, and they said, you know what, you can actually craft your own data, or you can start targeting your own first party data and craft the messages and start sending them. And that I call an intent based advertising, wherein you were able to identify a person's intent based on his past behavior, either on your website, through apps, or combining it together with their traits, like a specific mobile phone that they use at a specific geography at a specific time period. Um, Now, if this was the sort of an evolution, this all had one thing in the heart of it, and that was improving customer experience, and that was the fuel because of which this evolution has been possible. I think for me personally, the next new challenge is going to be not about being able to target the right person um, or in the right intent state, but it's going to be how not to be creepy, because soon we'll have a problem of being creepy if we don't already have that problem. Um, this is where I feel that the customer experience has to now transcend yet again from something I called an intent-based advertising to intuition-based advertising. And that is where you start leveraging technologies around AI and ML to identify what is the right intent state of the person, and first be able to identify the person as not just a cookie but actually as a real person. So that goes on to people-based marketing, which now is possible. And then going into what the person's journey has been, meaning what did he consume or she consume, what kind of ad in the previous visit, what was the intent of the next visit, or what was the onward journey that you'd expect a person to be doing on either on a web or an app, and based off which you craft your message, you find the right place to address or to expose the ad. And I'm essentially talking mostly around the ad space, because that's the most crucial from point of view of that's where your scale is in terms of spreading your net wider, and that's where it's the most difficult. Having said that, I mean, it's not going to be easy, but the good news is it's now possible thanks to the technologies like ID resolution, customer data platform, device graph companies. So these are a few sort of jargons and terminologies that you guys may have heard, which put together in a certain perfect synchronicity can deliver the next best action in the most intuitive form.
I think my response would practically mirror what Gigi said. So the journey from Missouri and Lemnisk, roughly spans a decade, and obviously a lot has changed, but a lot of things have also not changed, I would say, right? So I think first and foremost, and I think Gigi would agree as well, I don't think the fundamentals have changed at all, right? I think marketers have always obsessed about the holy grail of right time, right channel, right messaging, and that's almost common sense, right? So that part really hasn't changed. But I think what has changed is just the proliferation and the evolution of digital, which I think has been really unprecedented in the last decade, and that I think has altered priorities. And I think Gigi already summarized it, so I'm just going to mirror those as well. But I think the changes are on three fronts, I would say. First and foremost is, I think paid spends have, become a lot more accountable. There is a deeper understanding of data, of ROI and incrementality, and the need to tightly weave in paid spends into customer experience. And like Gigi mentioned, his experience, early days with Ogilvy, with that what he mentioned about buying Yahoo News Media. I mean, that was the past, and that used to happen a decade back, and it's almost laughable how things were being done back then. But from then to today, there's been a big shift, and that is also manifesting, I would say, in things like in-housing of media spends, of customized attribution models, etc. So I think that is one big change, and I think, like again, as Gigi mentioned, there is a much greater emphasis on customer experience, and that doesn't mean just in terms of more relevant or more personalized messaging. Of course, that's one big part of the shift that has happened. But I think the emphasis has also happened in terms of things like data privacy, consent, and how you use data, etc. And I think that is something that Gigi was referring to as well, in terms of avoiding creepy marketing and things like that. The third, I think, is machine learning and AI has become a lot more prevalent, right? Part of it has to do with the fact that it's just become a lot more easier today to build and test out algorithms. A decade back, I still remember, getting a great bidding algorithm or a collaborative filtering algorithm up and running effectively and making it work already meant you had proprietary IP. that's really not true anymore. I mean, that part has been sorted out to a large extent. So in that just means that the emphasis is shifting to scale, to edge cases, to a deeper understanding of customers, which I think, when Gigi spoke about it, he spoke of a more intuition-driven understanding, which I think is great. That's exactly how it should be, right? So I think those are probably the ways I see things have changed in the last decade or so.
That's actually a pretty good segue to the next section, which is mainly the importance of being at the right time, at the right moment for the customer, the right message rather, right? So in this section, my question to you, Gigi, is that in the current role that you are in, what is the level of importance that you would ascribe to these new age jargons and the underlying strategies behind them of real time, hyper personalization, real time interaction management, etc. And if you can share some examples of how you're utilizing this in the current context to create unique customer journeys, at your company right now, or even in the past. And Subra, you, as I know, have always sort of identified RTIM as one of the core pillars of the customer data platform, right? So if you can also elaborate a little bit on how it relates, how it plays out with the other CDP pillars, and as a foundation in itself, that would be great. So yeah, again, over to you guys.
Yeah, but I think it will probably play off of Gigi's response. But broadly, RTIM, or real-time interaction management, as it expands into, is basically the core CDP capability that would power these kinds of right time, right channel, right message that we want CDPs to achieve. Right now, I think the reason I think RTIM is important, but yet overlooked at times, is because it's not just about getting a customer one view across different marketing tools or different customer touch points and data sources. I think that part of developing a great CX, it has become obvious, right? And I think that is something that many people are managing to do. And to do that, one could argue, if all you wanted to do was get a customer 360, for example, one could argue you don't even need a CDP at some level. You could probably make do with a data lake kind of initiative or something else equivalent, right? But I think what gets missed out is that it's not just about getting that one view in place, but it's also about getting all of these different marketing tools and systems to talk to each other and communicate with each other and sort of orchestrate with each other, in the attempt to produce that great CX, right? And so for all of these systems to do that, to stay in sync with each other, you really need something like an RTIM, or a real-time interaction management. And that is, according to me, one of the core CDP capabilities that goes hand in hand with things like identity resolution and a centralized one view and things like that. Right? So that's the way I would call this up.
Yeah, I mean, and just to sort of corroborate this with a few examples, the way we use at Circus Life is, I mean, a classic example that I could give you is if you're at Circus Life and suddenly if you're running low on data, there will a message come specifically only for you saying, hey, data running low, why don't you boost now and save on your roaming data cost? Now this, as basic as it sounds for a telco, a lot of technology goes behind in just giving this as a small blurb on on the app. Having said that, this is much easier done because this is still first-party data, or using first-party data on our own app. So it's our own platform, and therefore the message can be sort of pre-configured and therefore sent out. But imagine if you take a more complex use case or a more complex scenario, where what we did was we sent out an ad saying, while you're waiting in a queue at a telco store trying to buy a plan, how about we send you this really funny cat video? So, and then at the end of the cat video, we said, it looks like your queue, if your queue is still long, perhaps you could just sign up with Circus Life right now and without queuing up. Now, here what happens is I've used geography, I've used prospecting behavior that a person may have been to my website. I've used a, a persona trait where a person may have a high affinity for cat videos. Combined all of these to create a persona, layered it on with a very funny ad, and then deployed it specific to a specific geo on a Facebook, which normally will become a, a channel or a favorite channel when a person is just killing time, and will become a go-to app for you to sort of kill time on. So using these few things or few technologies, we narrowed it down to a very personalized experience, and could have not been delivered had we not had real-time data getting fed into this whole marketing stack. And you would be surprised to realize, or maybe not, that there were at least 4 or 5 marketing stacks or marketing tools at play, and at least um, 6 data streams coming through from first party, third party, user behavior, geography, time of the day, media channel. Now, all these things have to create a perfect ensemble to be able to deliver that message and get that funny, get that laugh out of your customer.
We say that Circles does that really, really well. I've seen some of the other campaigns as well, and I think that's it's hard hitting because it just combines creativity with so many other things that you just mentioned. It combines it with not just creativity, but all of these other data sources as well. Circles does that really well. I've seen some of your other campaigns as well. Yeah, so I can understand the amount of effort and thought that goes behind this. Yeah.
I mean, you would remember, Subra, that one of the first campaigns that we did together was we could actually call out a person's name or buy a person's name if he was a returning or she was a returning user or returning visitor on our website, saying, "Hey, Subra, I see you have created a cart. With a click of this button, you can redeem a $10 voucher," and that had phenomenal response just because we were able to put your name there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, and Gigi, I must say that was a great example across data, technology, creative, the moment, context, and all of that. So amazing example. Yeah, so moving on to the third section, right? We often hear, and I've heard this a lot in the past, being from the marketing background, that Google doesn't share much data with us on campaign performance. Amazon doesn't share much any competitor info with us. How do we get more info on our customers and so on? So there's almost this resistance to build something from ground up rather than keep depending on external walled gardens, as we say, right? The big tech giants of the digital marketing world. So, Gigi, how do you, someone in your position, advise marketing leaders and up and coming marketing leaders to take ownership of all of this and convey that creating the right CX is in the brands and the advertisers' hand rather than anyone else, right? And to you, Subra, so I mean, and actually, it's a question to the two of you, that what are some of your tried and tested frameworks when you're evaluating some of these CX tools or the goals that you need to get out of a platform and so on?
So let me take the first one first. I think people are figuring out a way to circumvent these wall gardens. See, wall gardens was a realization and more of an exasperation, but that was, I would say, 3 years ago. And last 3 years, a lot has changed with the onset of customer data platform as a technology. DMP sort of led that way first, and then you have the other few practices that may have come that have come about around ID resolution. There are a few infrastructural developments or upgrades that have happened on data side, and have mushroom companies like Device Graph. So what people are now have the liberty of relooking at their whole remarketing practice. If previously it used to be inside out, meaning whatever information that Google and Facebook will track, and therefore it'll remain in their platforms, and therefore you have to continue using their platforms to reach out to users. So it's inside out. Rather, now it's possible to have an outside in point of view. And the way it can work is in a couple of ways. First is, and a good starting point would be, harness your leads, your PII data. PII data sort of is a gold standard to knowing a person and identifying him as a real person. From me, you'll normally see me gravitating towards people-based marketing, because I believe that is the truest form and fashion with which marketing should be run anyways. So it starts with the PII data. All the PII data, if could go and centered within a sort of a data platform, which already sort of connects into various channels, your CRM channels of email or WhatsApp or SMS or push notifications into app, or your ad channels like Facebook and Google. So what you've now done is, instead of using data and therefore audiences which are lying in isolation in these two platforms, you've now powered a new data stream of audiences or segments from your data platform, which is deterministically stitched with your PII data, and therefore now you are deploying it in Facebook and Google. In effect, you've created a bridge between these two walled gardens, where now data is being fed from outside in, and it's your data. It's it's the gold standard, and it's the most dependable. Now, on top of it, you can use the interest rates which are available in Facebook and Google, and you can start building your audiences on top of it. Once again, that data is going to come back to you in form of cookies, in form of device IDs, if people were to download, if people were to run install campaigns, using these PII information and deploying a third-party sort of a data reference point, say of a device graph. You will now be able to stitch your fragmented identifiers like PII information, cookie data, together with device, lat long, and PII information if there is any, and create one unified view of a user. Then use third-party data providers like Bluekai or IOTA, and then you enrich this one unified view of a user into a enriched persona. So if now that you've got a handle on who this person is, you also will now know whether he likes tennis over soccer, or whether he likes cats over dog videos. Using this information, then you can plug it back into Facebook and Google, and leverage their platforms for reaching out more people who have higher intent states, which you have already sort of qualified with your PII data, and therefore continue to improve not only customer experience but also your conversion rates. So this is how I would approach now to how I can probably circumvent the internet giants and their world garden sort of world domination strategies.
And so, Gigi, actually, I remember, nearly 2 years back when I spoke to you, you had already had a sense of some of the things that you were mentioning. It certainly seems like you had an intuition, or some of these things were playing at the back of your mind even back then, right? So, is this something that you saw a couple of years back? Because I always tell everybody I meet that you're one of the earliest people in this region to talk to me about a pure play CDP, right? And that's usually not something I encounter. So it's I mean, just interested to hear your sort of
I think
behind the evolution led you to that point.
No, I think it was less of an orchestration and more of a eureka while I was going down the rabbit hole of trying to muster up a Martech stack for Circus Life. And the way it sort of happened is, and if I remember it right, there has to be more to this discussion than just evaluating, let's take X DMP or a Y DSP. There has to be a larger purpose, which all of this put together has to serve. And then the sort of a beacon light for me was start at the customer. What does a customer want, and what do I want to give him and enrich his experience, and how I want to enrich his experience, keeping the holy grail in the back of the mind of right customer, right message, and right channel. So keeping these few building blocks in mind, I sort of first started crafting, these user journeys in a far more elaborate and manual way, using a CDP, using a DMP with a DSP, and then marketing automation platform, how it all will work together. And then when I stumbled upon one of the articles by David Raab on the CDP Institute, and then I started reading more about CDP, and it seemed like we have sort of combined all these, fragmented pieces of technologies into a one box can actually power all of this in a very beautiful way. That led me to start reading up a lot about a lot of companies. Came across Lemnis, because I was quite impressed by the fact that you guys were at the forefront and have already included an AI layer on your CDP. So that sort of led me into this world of CDP and data management. And but then again, my beacon light, if I were to say, was always, how do I continue to give a superior experience, which is less creepy and more intuitive.
Shalaka, next question pertain to, I think obviously there's been a proliferation of technologies as well, and I think it's common for everybody to claim they do everything. I guess at some level, everybody does that. So I think maybe you can go first on that question. What is that one tried and tested framework that you bet on when you evaluate technologies that claim to have real-time personalization and targeting, things like that? And maybe I'll jump in, but I'll obviously bring a partner or vendor perspective. So I would prefer you give that response there.
Sure. So my previous response was actually was sort of already alluding to the second question. So you guys can, when you're editing it, you can just combine it together. Sure. So I think from a perspective of how will I go about evaluating what marketing Martech partner that I can go for, I think it all begins at what my objective is. So if my objective is to say realize a people-based marketing, then in that case I would need to know what are the various components required. I would also need to have a fairly good understanding of how the technology or what's under the hood, how each of these wires are connected. A few rules that I sort of work with is there should be a two-way data flow or data exchange between the platform and, let's say, our data lake in a near real time at minimum. There should be a lookalike modeling, if possible, at the platform's end. If there is, they should have a fairly universal way of ingesting data, and should be able to um, ingest various schemas, and be fairly modular in nature, to be able to play well with various technologies out there. And definitely don't subscribe to being another walled garden. So those are a few sort of guiding factors for me to evaluate a good match. But one of the most important aspects is a relationship. As you may have seen, what's been happening is, while the businesses have gone software as a service and platform based, cloud based platforms, some of these companies have also taken the relationships and become cloud based. We will see you and we will have these many hours for the whole of the year, but if you need any consultancy, you probably will need to buy more hours. And the whole personal ability or the personal touch has completely gone missing. And this, to me, is very valuable. I still believe that people buy from people, and if people are removed after the purchase, then then a robot can do the job. Then why do I need to get anybody to sell it to me or to interact? So I think, so one of the very important aspects is that dedicated you know if not, well, not dedicated, but a sense of concern.
Yeah.
A sense of we are here to serve, or we are here to your problem is mine, and that sort of exudes from the way the platform is designed, or the way the relationship has to evolve over a period of time. You have to educate me. You would know a lot more about the industry and how best to use this platform, while I will only know what business impact I need to create. Now, a bridge of this either is you leave it to me for me to wake up with a eureka that, oh, this is the ways of using it, or you sort of handhold me and take me through, which will require a lot more engagement. So that, to me, is a very important piece, barring the technology, barring the USPs, because like you said in one of your in our previous conversations, that there will come a time where all platforms will start looking pretty much same. And what will be that USP? I believe that USP will be a company which cares for the clients, or for the partner's business. I think that one piece will continue to remain a USP, whoever wants to embrace it.
That was actually going to be my response to test and tried framework, and I think that's the perspective that I can bring as a partner to. And I think you spot on there, Gigi, because I think quality of service is going to be a very, very determining metric, and for the ability to be agile, the ability to bring intensity, to own the customer goals, number one. And number two would be the ability to consult with the client proactively and be able to provide those to derive maximum possible value out of any offering. I think that can only come when you look at quality of service as an important metric. And sometimes I still feel that customers I know you value it, but I've seen in other cases it just boils down to nuts and bolts. Okay, this feature, that feature, now tell me the price. Whereas I think the intensity that the partner brings, the proactiveness that they bring, is a very, very important factor. And I think that's something that I like to believe that Lemnis does very well. Yeah.
So, lastly, to conclude, while we've sort of established that CDP or just including real-time hyper-personalized, one-on-one communications in your enterprise CX strategy is at the foundation of all of this, and in itself is innovative. There's always the question of what next, right? So, Subra, to you as the CEO of a CDP company, What do you think is next now for CDPs? Like, where does the innovation begin now? And a lot of the innovative competition also happens in that space. And side note over here is that Gigi is, one of the most energetic people when it comes to giving his feedback about platform capabilities and how a CDP company like us can build a product roadmap. So yeah, over to you, Subra.
Yeah, I think in short, machine learning, right? So I just think that uh, scaled personalization, which is scaled right time, right channel, right message, just needs the scaled automation that machine learning can alone bring, right? So we've seen, and I think I spoke earlier about how the algorithm development itself is sort of getting the process of it is getting commoditized, right? So I just think that a decade from now, I would be very surprised if segmented or batch and blast kind of marketing platforms have not evolved, or they were probably died based on their ability to integrate machine learning into their offerings, right? And in doing that, the role of partnering with the client is going to become more and more important, right? Because there is going to be a greater emphasis on sort of co-developing sharper offerings. In fact, I can verify that from our own experience internally of developing product, where we actually tested 3 variants of an algo. One was a pure rules-based sort of segment that was running. One was a pure algorithm, and the third was one where we had the algo running, but there were the marketer could potentially override it with their rules, right? So there were a set of rules where the marketer's intuition came into play, and the algo would override. And no surprise, the third one, beat the other two, right? So I think this is going to be the future. It's going to be very machine learning driven, and it's going to be one where customers and partners like Lemnisc have to really collaborate very, very closely in sort of making it happen. So that would be my assessment.
Thank you so much, Gigi, for being a part of this. And of course, thank you, Subra, for your perspectives as well. Absolutely, amazing, effervescent kind of a discussion. As I said, we love speaking with you, Gigi, and, look forward to keep continuing having such conversations, right? So yeah, thanks so much again.
Thank
Sure,
you.
the pleasure was mine. It was a very engaging conversation, and I always tend to geek out whenever Subra is on the other side.
Yeah, I hope we get the chance to do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.